Okay then, here we go. So I am unmuting this and this. Alright then, so first time I've ever simultaneously done Facebook Live and Zoom. I'm just sorting the volume out over here. Mainly so I can't hear myself twice over. So we're on to actually two cameras, so if my eyes go slightly from one to the other, that's because I'm watching myself, and it's just a slightly different experience, but essentially it's exactly the same as I've done before when I've done Facebook Live. It's the first time going on to Zoom. If you'd like to come over to Zoom, if you have a quick look in the MW Fitness training and coaching group, which is where this Facebook Live is going out, there is links in there to the Zoom video, and that is interactive video. So obviously you can interact with the comments, but on this one you'll be able to actually see me currently actually from two angles, because I'm running two different things to be able to see what's going on, and so I can see myself, and on one of them I'm presenting slides as well. So hopefully if you come over to Zoom you'll be able to see these slides. First of all, right now I've got an interesting thing I'm saying Facebook Live Zoom video, what we're going to be talking about, which is nutrition, training, a little bit of mindset, and then talking about MW Fitness Online, the daily workout and nutrition support, mindset support, the overall package, the group that I offer over on Facebook. Everything's contained in there for you to be really successful with health and fitness, well-being, and everything that is happening right now is helped in there. So someone's coming onto my Zoom, that's great. And what I'm going to do now, once they're in, is get into what we're talking about. So what we'll do is a real quick recap of what I talked about earlier in the week, last week, and I'm going to actually hopefully bring up some more slides as well, and yeah, bring you a bit more of a visual thing, particularly over on Zoom. So what I'll do, because we're on Facebook now, I can't pop that much in, I can't add things to it, so I'll put all the slides up into one post and with one link afterwards for YouTube and the Zoom, if you use Zoom, and you'll be able to kind of match the two up and yeah, put a kind of visual part to what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm just going to swap over my screen over here, share something a little bit different, which is really a summary of what I was talking about the other day around nutrition. So if I pull that slide up, got them all in order, but the quirks of the system hasn't put them in order in the thing, but at least I know it's number 2. So you might be able to see, if you're on Zoom, this slide that says how many calories. And we were talking the other day in the nutrition about getting the right principles in place to be successful with health and fitness, and actually just with general nutrition. You take it away from health and fitness, take it away from any goals. If it's anything to do with health and fitness and just general well-being, we've got to put some things in the right place. Now, I was saying that the principles really override the system, as it were. The principles are way more important than the way you then choose to eat with the principles. So the principles are, just to recap, total calories based around your goal, and that might be just maintaining, staying exactly as you are. You're perfectly happy and you eat really well, and that is the right amount of food for you. Coupling that to general health as well is this idea of having enough protein. Now that can, it's going to wave to some people. Generally, in most of our kind of Western diet, we have high levels of carbohydrates, which is absolutely fine if then protein is brought up. The reason protein is important is it's the building blocks of everything about us physically. So hair, teeth, eyes, skin, you name it, all our cells are being built and rebuilt, depending on the turnover of that particular cell, by protein blocks. Now the blocks of protein are amino acids, and there are 9 amino acids that are called essential amino acids because we can't physically get them from anywhere other than taking them in. There's more amino acids than that, goes up to around about 22. The other ones our body can make from the ones that we take in. So if we get those 9 in, we can resynthesize the others, and the body will utilize those to do the different jobs that it needs to do. Now, that's cool as long as there's enough protein going in. Now, for general health, it's probably actually more than most people would eat. We're talking 0.8 grams to 1 gram, this is for general health, of body weight. So I roughly weigh 180 to 190 pounds. I would need to look at eating 180 grams of protein per day. That is going to come from at least four for 180 grams, good portions of protein a day. So within each meal, if we go on the traditional breakfast, lunch and dinner type model, I'm going to be having a portion of protein, or need to have a portion of protein if that's how I'm going to split it up. And a couple of my snacks are going to have a little bit of a protein focus as well. Now, that's not to say it's got to be exclusively, let's look on the food pyramid, or look on the eat well plate, or crack out the supplement tub to make sure we get just protein. Most foods contain a mixture of the different nutrients, the macros being protein, carbohydrates and fats. So even in something that would be more traditionally thought of as a carbohydrate source, say a pita bread, a bagel, oats, there's going to be a certain amount of protein in there as well. That all contributes. You focus more then on the health side and start adding things like quinoa, rice even, peas, more protein is going to be in there. So by eating well and having a focus on protein, you're going to get close to that amount. People that are smaller, lighter, not going to need as much protein because they haven't got as much body weight to need that extra protein. If we're going to go into a training context, and particularly in a calorie deficit, which is what we need if we are looking at fat loss and weight loss, then we're actually going to push that protein up a little bit more to preserve the muscle that you have in your body. Now, you might not consider yourself to be really muscular, but in a calorie deficit, the body's got to find somewhere else to get the energy from. Now, I'll pop that slide up now. The calorie deficit slide, energy balance. So looking at energy balance now, I'll pop this slide up over here, and this is where I talk about having that kind of seesaw effect. So on the one side, we've got what we're taking in, whether it be from food or drinks, fruit juices, alcohols, all those sort of things, all got calories, and that's going to be made up of our protein, carbohydrates, our fats, everything going in. So energy balance, to lose weight, we have to have more going out than we've got coming in. The body has to find that from somewhere. Now, the idea is to use our fat stores that we all have. Even someone who's super lean still has a body fat stores. If we're looking to lose weight, lose fat, we ultimately want to use those fat stores up. So we're going to have an output that's higher than our input in terms of energy coming in and out. So what we don't want is for our body to break down the muscle that we already have and utilize it as a fuel source, because the body can do that. And it's actually a little bit easier for the body to do that than it is for the body to utilize fat as an energy source. There is, just to go on to a little aside, there's no such thing as a fat burning workout. I know I do classes at the gym called fat burn. In the class itself, during your exercise, you are generally very unlikely to burn fat. If you're going into super distance running, and I'm talking marathons plus ultra running, if you do something that's steady and consistent for days at a time, then your body might start to utilize fat. But before it does that, it's still going to break down muscle because it's easier for the body to do that. The reason being is the pathway to break down fat is a slow pathway. The body doesn't actually want to do it. It wants to preserve that fat for times when there isn't energy coming in. Well, actually, we're putting it into a state where there isn't enough energy coming in, but in the body's system, it's still easier to break down the muscle. So we're keeping the protein at a good level to prevent that from happening. Particularly important if you are looking at fat burning or fat loss, body weight reduction, bringing it down, and adding exercise in as well. So I've done this myself. If you don't keep your protein high enough, you're going to start to literally metabolize your your muscle. Not in a massive kind of major way, wasting away really quickly, just that is a factor to be taken into consideration. And that's why, hiya Paula, we keep protein at a good level, 0.8 to 1 gram for general health, 1.5, even higher depending on how far into a calorie deficit and how lean someone is trying to get. Paula's just jumped on. I coached her for her physique competitions. Chris, who was doing her nutrition, kept her protein really high. When I did the same thing, I was up as high as 2.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, per pound of body weight, to preserve as much muscle as possible. If you're going into sports performance, and if kind of general continual day-to-day activity is important to you and something that you do, then you're going to have to keep that protein level at a good amount to recover, preserve your muscle, and being able to work. Now, focus on protein there, because I often find it's really overlooked when someone comes to me to start off their health and fitness transition journey, whatever we like to call it. Now, the other energy, 5 p.m. yeah, tonight. Our other general energy comes from carbohydrates and fats. Now, for most people, that can come from looking at this energy balance and looking at what these macronutrient groups, that's what they're called, macronutrients. You're going to have carbohydrates and fats in your diet. Now, neither or none of these groups should actually be demonized in terms of I'm going to be low carb because I've heard that's better, or I'm going to cut out fat because I don't want to be fat. All these groups have a purpose and a use in the body that we can't overlook. We have to have a good balance and a good intake. That's not to say it has to be the same intake every single day. And there could be applications where you would reduce fats, for instance, because you actually preferentially prefer carbohydrates. That's absolutely fine. As I said before with the protein, most food that we eat has got a combination of these different things in. That's absolutely fine. And in a way, that's a good thing to make sure that you're going to have a balance of those nutrients coming in. So going back to not demonizing, a lot of these things where people say I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z is actually a bit of a misconception about what those food groups are doing. Our main energy source in our bodies is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates go into our body, they're broken down into glucose, which is sugar, and then they are utilized in the body either immediately or stored again as glycogen. If the glycogen stores are full, excessive carbohydrates will get stored as fat. There's a pathway where glucose, glycogen, becomes adipose tissue. That adipose is what fat is called in the body. So if we've got that in the right balance, we're actually going to keep that stable or move it in the other direction. Fats are really important, particularly for you ladies out there. Fats run all your hormones. You know, estrogen, progesterone. This is a whole nother talk that I'm going to do next week in this group about the hormone cycle, the monthly cycle. You know, and for you guys out there, you know, testosterone is really important. I'm getting older, I'm 41. You know, I know Rob's watching, and you know, you're a little bit older than me, Rob. And you know, testosterone is essential. It's ladies have it as well, just not in the same amount, which is why their muscle growth potential is nowhere near that of a man's. And but it is there. And testosterone is, for a man, is what drives pretty much everything. It drives literally your get up and go drive. It drives muscle maintenance or muscle growth. It drives your energy to a certain extent. It drives your sex drive. You know, it's really important. It's elevated in men up to a much higher level than it is in ladies. Fortunately for men, doing all the good things, doing all the right things in terms of health and fitness, training, resistance training particularly, helps maintain and elevate levels of testosterone. Really important when you get into your mid-30s, 40s and beyond, because that's when it starts to drop. Testosterone is really there for reproduction. That's why it drives all those things, the kind of primal hunter-gatherer instinct, looking after your spouse and then procreating. That's what it's there for. So it starts to diminish after that kind of stage of life is starting to pass. But actually you want to kind of maintain that and keep it going. For you ladies, it's a bit more complicated. You've actually got estrogen and progesterone working around each other. Hey, Danny? And you've got the the other hormones that interact with that, on top of all the other hormones we've all got in our bodies. Now, we need fats in our diet because hormones are made, transported around in fats, in fatty acids in our body. So good levels of healthy fats, including saturated fats, are needed for general health. Okay, so back onto the energy balance. Let's have a look at the next slide. So all the slides for you guys on Facebook Live are going to put up in another post a little bit later on. Actually, I don't know if I've got a slide about this, but I'll put the next one up ready. Once we have got the protein at the right level, then we want to have the carbohydrates and fats at the right balance for you. So for most people, when I set this up, in terms of looking at their total calories in, which is the first principle, protein amount, carbohydrates and fats to your taste, to your choice of food, to make up the rest of the calories. Now, usually I set it up at around about 35% protein. That seems to work and hit around about that 1 gram per pound of body weight, and then 35% carbohydrates, so coming out around about the same amount in terms of grams, and then fats at 30%. They're a bit looser. You can manage those however you want, and just grabbing a coffee, picking my coffee up. You can manage those however you want. Now, that then for applies, you've got percentages that you're going to have to do some sort of tracking. Now, tracking isn't for everyone, and it can work off a bit more how you feel. That's called intuitive eating. The problem with that sometimes is, though, that our intuitive eating is, oh, I like that, I'm going to eat it, and it's not necessarily the right things, or it might be too much. Obviously, that's what's most prevalent in society, is food's readily available. Food that's easy to eat isn't necessarily always the best choice in terms of calories or content for health, and we end up eating way too much. You know, one of the great side, potentially good things about social distancing and lockdown and being much more thought out about going to the shops is a lot of us, including myself, are probably eating a lot better than we were 3-4 weeks ago, because it's much more thought out what we're going to do. You go to the supermarket, it might be, you know, I'm a cereal supermarket goer. I'll go every day and basically enjoy it because I like going around and know where everything is. That's actually just kind of been flipped on its head now, in terms of everyone's eating potentially quite a bit better. And I know there's plenty of memes going around saying, oh, drinking every day. And I got sent a really funny video today saying the peak drinking level is about to come in the next 6 to 7 days, and then we'll see a drop off and things like that. I know people are relaxing in the way they would like to relax, which is absolutely fine. But I think overall a lot of people are actually being more mindful. And in a sense, that's what it's about, being more mindful about what's coming in. So it might mean tracking, it might not. I generally encourage people to track it at least for a period of time, to get a feel of what my calorie intake actually looks like, written down, noted down, put into an app, whatever the best way for you is, what that actually looks like. And then therefore, what you know about, what you're mindful of, you can manage. And it takes a little bit of getting used to. And I usually say to people, give yourself 7 to 10 days. And that's when, usually the first 7 to 10 days is when people come back with a lot of questions of, how do I do this? How do I hit the protein? What are good protein snacks? Always a really common question. How do I navigate going out at the weekend? Because in my mind, that's going to be blowing up what I've been focusing on. Now, that's the great thing about tracking, because then you can start to look at it in terms of more paying it back later, or saving up and paying it back. So I'm just going to put up this slide real quick over here about calories as money, which is quite a cool concept to think about it like this. So if we look at energy balance as pounds, you actually want to have, in this context, a lower income and higher spend, thinking about energy balance as pounds. So we want our income to be down, what's going in, and we want our expenditure, our spending, to be higher. So workouts, exercise, NEAT, non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, that continual movement we might do, just around at home, playing with the kids, doing a little bit of gardening, you know, ironing, hoovering, all those things, that wants to be higher than what we've got coming in. If we're looking at body composition, we want to match them up. If we're looking at maintaining, and maintaining might be the right thing to do if you are into into sports, you are training for say running or whatever it is, you're trying to maintain, and then actually the income has to be higher for people wanting to build muscle. That's generally what's known as bulking, and that's another separate topic that we'll talk about. So that's energy balance as pounds. Let's look at it in terms of balancing it across a week. So now we're talking about energy intake, calorie intake across a week rather than day to day. Now this is another thing that people get kind of a bit, what's the word? It can really throw them off if they have a bad day, in inverted commas. And it can really throw them off if it's either unplanned or actually, do you know what, I know I'm going out on Friday night, I know I'm going out on Saturday night, clearly not at the moment, or I know we're going to have a barbecue because the weather's been good, and then is it worth sticking to it the rest of the time? Well, oh, wrong one. If I get the right slide up here, I've got two of these to show. This slide, which I'll share later, shows basically energy intake as a graph. Now I've made this slide purposely how it is because if you use MyFitnessPal as a tracking tool, which is the one I generally use with most people because it's easy to download, set up, then you get a very similar graph built into that app. You can find it by looking at a week at a time of your calorie intake. Your calories can be thought of as a weekly total, or even longer actually. 10 days probably maximum. Otherwise it starts to get very convoluted. But if you look across a 7-day week, and for instance on this example it's based on the kind of average man, which is in a sense there's no such thing, but 2,400 calories daily is something that I've set for quite a few of my male clients. On this one they've got a training day, so they eat just below 2,400. They've got a rest day, so it comes down. Then it goes up to a little bit higher because they've got a training day that actually hit it that day. Another rest day, so it comes down. So on and so on. Saturday, they go up to 3,000. Okay, so they go out on Friday night. They have a bit of a bigger meal, steak and chips, 3 or 4 drinks, and boom, they've gone up to 3,000. But because before that, they either knew it was coming up, or this is generally how they do it, they didn't eat all their calories. At the end of the week, even though on Sunday they're still a little bit out because they're having a little bit extra food because of the night out the night before, they're still actually on target. They're still in deficit over the weeks. The 2,400 calories intake is a deficit, so maybe their actual maintenance calories are 2,800. Across the week, if you average it, they've still hit 2,400. Another example put out in a slightly different way. Here we go. Talk through this one. This is probably even more kind of prevalent for a lot of people. Being flexible in sense of a lot of people. Obviously I work with men and women, but I work with a lot of ladies. And it's just presented in a slightly different way. So this time we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday listed downwards, same sort of thing. It's a lady who is in a deficit, 1,600 calories a day. So that's 11,200 across the week. And on Monday they're training, but they get 1,500. Tuesday they're resting, 1,400. Wednesday they're training, 1,500. Thursday rest again, 1,400. So already across that week they've saved 600. Friday training, drinks out in the evening, meeting a friend, whatever. It's gone up to 1,700. Saturday meal out with dessert, 1,900. Boom, they've gone right over. No, they haven't, because they've actually bought it in. Even on Sunday, roast dinner, a little bit more in. They've gone for a walk. They've had a roast dinner when they've got back, 1,800. On average across the week, they've still exactly hit 1,600 per day. It's just across the week. And that's what it's about. If you have that little bit of tracking, have that little bit of flexibility in day to day, have that good knowledge of what you can eat, to hit the calories, and it's all about, for me, having the right volume of food so you feel full. Protein helps with that as well. Good quality carbohydrates help with that as well. Oats, potatoes, rice. This is obviously not taking into account any slight intolerances and things like that. Fats in the right quantity, you're going to feel full, you're going to have eaten plenty of food and be able to hit these targets. Now, there's all sorts going on that can throw us off track, which is totally understandable. So if we suddenly, at some point, we've had a rough week because it's isolation, lockdown, Domino's is still delivering, for example, and you say, right, forget it, I'm just going to have a Domino's tonight, I'm going to get the chicken wings, I'm going to get everything in, and you eat most of that, that's fine. You can do this the other way around. Rather than it was a planned in savings of calories, you can then kind of pay it back in the kind of financial analogy the next 2 or 3 days. And it doesn't have to be paying it all back on Sunday. So, for instance, if that was Saturday night, if that was your night last night, you don't have to pay it all back today. You can pay it back on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. Just being mindful, bit of tracking, bringing it back down. Now, yeah, that might seem really simple. And this is what I was saying the other night, is that actually it is quite simple, and I try and make it hopefully as simple as possible for people to be able to do that. The harder part is implementing it, in a sense. Once you've got your head around a bit of tracking, once you know your numbers, it's then being confident that this works. And the only way confidence comes is by working through the process. There's lots of tools or lots of kind of diet plans out there that create exactly the same thing. And I touched on this again the other night. When you start to have diets or ways of eating that completely cut out whole food groups, then you're pretty much automatically going to end up in a calorie deficit. And for some of those ways of eating, they're not actually going to be that helpful in terms of other goals. So they might be helpful with being in a calorie deficit, but they're not necessarily going to be helpful with muscle building, for instance. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about things like intermittent fasting, I'm talking about keto, I'm talking about the 5-2 diet. That's another type of intermittent fasting. They've all got applications, but the main application is that they are methods of having a calorie deficit. It might well be sustainable for you as an individual, which is absolutely fine. You might really prefer to eat meat, protein, eggs, fish, fat sources. Absolutely fine. I've done things before. I've done the Whole30 diet, which is a kind of quite a strict version of paleo, and there's a paleo diet as well. There's nothing wrong with any of these things. For me, to a degree, cutting out a whole food group, there is definitely reasons to be aware of what that might mean, but they're not going to, in the short term particularly, do you any harm, unless it's a ridiculous, like no carb, low carb, super low calorie thing. And even then, the principle of fasting is, if you don't eat for 24 hours, actually you're not going to do yourself any harm. There's some medical evidence that helps to take the energy that would be used for digestion and improve how your immune system works, and other parts of your physiology actually can catch up with itself because you're not constantly digesting food. Personally, I've seen studies that says that happens anyway if you're not eating excessively, as in above maintenance. So it's a benefit, but you can get the same benefit in other ways. As long as you're not doing these things for a super long period of time, they're not going to be detrimental to your health. But are they sustainable? That's the thing. That's the next slide I'm going to bob up, if I can find it quickly. Is just that question. Is what you're doing sustainable? Now, I've used this slide in MW Fitness Online. It's one of the daily focuses. Is what you're doing sustainable? Can you just keep going? Can you see yourself doing what you're doing now until you reach your goal? And then once you reach your goal, actually probably keep doing most of it. And our diets, whether you cut out a whole food group or are time restricted when you're eating, actually sustainable over a longer period of time. If you have long hours at work, can you get up in the morning quite early and not eat until lunchtime for intermittent fasting, for instance? Can you, say, through week to week, day to day, can you go through life and not eat any carbohydrates? Are you going to be able to go to your friend's house and say, not at the moment, but in the future, are you going to be able to go to your friend's house and say, oh, sorry, that spaghetti bolognese looks really good, but I can just have the meat and not any of the tomato sauce or the pasta? I'll just have some cheese on top. That's, for example, I would come out, but I'm trying to get into ketosis, which takes longer than people think. So I can come out, but I'm going to drink water. I can't even have a squash or a Coke or anything, because that'll take me out of working towards ketosis. Ketosis actually takes up to, for some people, takes 21 days to get into. So the whole basis of the keto diet is like kind of getting the body's physiology to do something different, get energy from fats. It takes much longer to get into that point. You know, I've seen people on social media, Facebook, Instagram, saying, I'm doing the keto diet, but you're out on Friday night. Alcohol's not in the keto diet. As soon as you have something other than proteins and fats, you're not going into ketosis. So actually you're just using it as a diet strategy. You're not actually ever going to get to the full benefits, the full state of the keto diet, which is ketosis. That's cool. You know, if a strategy works for you, and I've got clients that do different strategies, I will 100% support you with it. But the question is it sustainable for you? So, talk loads around nutrition again. I always seem to end up on nutrition and talking about it because principles are really simple, and I think the waters have been really muddied with so much information being out there and available. And that's not to say don't check what I'm saying, don't go to some reputable sources, not the Daily Mail, and find out, you know, check against what I've just been saying. And particularly when I put the slides into the Facebook group, you know, check it out. You know, look at some other reputable people in the fitness industry, and by reputable I don't mean Instagram influencers. I mean people like Dr. Lane Norton, who has got an actual PhD. In fact, he's got 2 in nutrition. And look at people like Dr. John Russin, also PhD. You know, these guys are based in America. There's people over here in the UK. You know, Chloe Madeley. You know, obviously, she is an Instagram influencer, but she's well qualified as a personal trainer, and what she talks about is exactly the same as what I talk about. And you know, she just package it up and sell it, same as I do in a sense, but she's putting the information out there like this for free. You've got to go and look on her Instagram from yesterday, it's out there. A lot of people know James Smith, come to a lot of prominence the last couple of years in the fitness industry. Not everyone's cup of tea because he's got a filthy mouth, but most of what he says, particularly around nutrition and balance in your life and what's actually important, is bang on. He's dead right. And it's disappointing in a sense for me when people in the fitness industry sell diets, sell a full kind of, this is what you should eat, boom, 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 this is the plan. Because how sustainable is that? And how much benefit are you getting from that in terms of long term? Are you actually getting some actual strategies, actual principles to implement? Principles can't be sold. Principles aren't products. Principles are, as long as they're the right principles, they're fixed. You know, there's principles in business, there's principles in life that work, and there's principles with health and fitness and nutrition that work. And you know, we can have different variations of that and different strategies of that, but the principles remain the same. Sometimes you just got to look a little bit deeper to see, where is the principle in this? Is it the right principle? And if it matches up to the principles and you think it's going to work for you, great, go for it. You know, I was chatting with someone today about the fact that protein powders are man-made and processed. Yes, but if you actually think about it, these days most food is man-made and processed in some way. You know, for farming methods, you know, it's not that the cows are not wild, raised completely wild and they're organic and eating just, you know, the nice lush grass around, they're being given artificial food. They'll be given sometimes obviously getting antibiotics to keep them healthy, which is absolutely fine. Sometimes in less scrupulous circles, they might be given things to make them grow faster. Same with chicken, same with other animals, same with the things we eat in terms of food, fruit, veg. All these things that are natural have pesticides, chemicals used on them. You know, even when they're organic, they're still going to get handled and they're still going to get processed and they're still going to get packaged with things that we wouldn't term as natural. You know, you can buy your organic courgettes in a sealed bag. The fact they're in a sealed bag with the gas that's put in there to preserve them means that there's something there that isn't completely natural, and we're going to get residual amounts of that into our system. So something like whey protein from a reputable company is actually a very good, clean way, a very good, safe way of getting some protein in. And I still have people ask me, "Oh, is whey protein, isn't that, you know, a bit of a kind of bodybuilder drug type thing?" No, you know, a lot of nutritionists now are saying whey protein should be on that kind of list of superfoods alongside avocados, blueberries, all these good things, cranberries. You know, whey protein should be up there as well because of how useful it is in terms of how easy it is to get it into our diet. Protein shake, mix it, you can have it, you can use it in as ingredients in other foods you might be having, and the cost to usage kind of benefit is way down compared to finding, you know, if you went and found a butcher prepared organic chicken breast, it's not going to cost you anything like a 1.5 scoops or 2 scoops of whey protein. It's going to be costing you £8 a kilo, £10 a kilo even. And you go into Aldi, 500 grams of chicken, not even free range sometimes, is £3.50 or more. So you see the difference. And that 500 grams of chicken that you buy is going to do 2 or 3 portions. Whey protein, whatever form, in the actual drinks bottles or getting a packet or whatever, is actually going to last for much longer. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's not for everyone. It's derived from milk. It is taken from curds and whey in the nursery rhyme. That is the whey. It's the protein extracted part of milk. And for some people, they might have a small intolerance to it, and actually having more than one shake a day won't agree with them. And there's other ways around that. There's other products that you can get. You can get vegan proteins. And you don't have to be vegan to have a vegan protein. So other sources are there. So plant source protein. I've got some. We generally try and keep some in because it's just another variation, another way of getting different nutrients with protein as the focus into our nutrition. So still got a sustainable slide.